All right, good morning. I am taping, so let me get rid of that. That's not what I wanted. Let's see. That's what I wanted. Okay, so good morning and welcome to day 2. All right. As it says, today we're going to be going over chapters 2 and 3 while we build our first website. You are not going to be responsible for turning this in. If you are more comfortable just watching me do this, that's totally fine. What I'm going to do, I wanted to work on this last night and create it ahead of time. Guess what? I didn't do it. I ended up just sitting around yesterday because I didn't feel like doing anything else. So I'm doing this 100% from scratch, but I'm going to go through all the steps and I'm going to build myself a GitHub repository as we start. So if you don't want to key anything in, you'll have the finished product when we get all done. I'm going to bounce back and forth. I'm going to do a little bit of work on the website. Then I'm going to go into chapter 2 and I'm going to bounce back and forth between the website and chapter 2 and then do the same thing with chapter 3. All right. And then we'll see where we are time wise after that. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to come into GitHub. Put my fingers on the right keys. So GitHub. Good golly. There we go. GitHub. All right. And I'm going to build a new repository. Now I could put this under the regular repository, but this is just something extra. So I'm just going to put it here and I'm just going to call it first website. All right. You can see the name is available. All right. Again, if I use something that was already here, I'd get an error message and it wouldn't let me go on. I'm going to make mine public. You would, of course, make yours private. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little later today. And I'm going to click Create Repository. It gives me this. It's exactly what I want. I want to grab that line right there. I want to make sure that I'm set up to HTTPS and grab that second last line and copy it to the clipboard. All right, next from here, I'm on my an empty spot here on the desktop. Okay, so I'm going to right mouse click here and just one more time to double check. I call this first website. So I'm going to come in here, right mouse click and put new and folder. And I'm going to call this the same thing, first website. There'll be nothing in there for just a second, nothing. But I'm going to double click on it to open it. And then I'm going to right mouse click on it and choose Git Bash here. Now to show that right now there's nothing set up for Git, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in here. It's going to get an error message. I'm going to type in here Git status. And it says error. I don't have any repository. So I'm going to create one by saying Git init. As soon as I hit enter, you're going to see a .git folder right there. And there it is. All right, that's all I have to do in here for now, except I'm going to paste in that line, git remote add origin. So what this says is it's giving a message to Git and it's letting it know that, hey, later on, if I try to push this up to GitHub to a repository, this is where I'm going to be pushing it to. All right, so I get to there and I just hit enter. And if it comes back with most of the GitHub commands, not all of them, but with most of them, if it comes back like this, and it just gives you your prompt, this $sign, it worked. I can double check it by typing in git remote -v, and then it right up here. So when I hit enter, you see that it's there. So everything looks real good so far. All right. Now I'm not going to do anything more on that. It wouldn't make any sense because this is empty right now. Now, if you installed Visual Studio yesterday and you installed it the way that I showed it to you, there's just a little shortcut. It's no big thing one way or the other, but I'm going to close this and I'm going to right mouse click on my folder name and I'm going to choose open with code like that. And that'll open this up in Visual Studio Code. Now, if for some reason All right, let's say that you right mouse click on here and you don't have an open with code. It's possible. All right, if that happens, then just come down to here and in your Windows search bar, type in Visual Studio Code. You can see it's right there, and click on the link and it's open. Now, the folder isn't open, but Visual Studio Code is open. So I can click File and then go to Open Folder. And then on my desktop, I'll have to find that first website. And that's the same exact thing. It's no biggie one way or the other. All right. Now, what oftentimes happens in textbooks, in people's lectures, etc., is they show you how to do something, and then after you're kind of comfortable with it, all right, then they say, well, you know what, we showed this to you and it works when you do this, but that's not really the way that you should do it. All right. And if you say, why, what do you mean? I'll always remember this as a little kid, because hard to believe maybe, but I was kind of a smart ass as a student. And it must have been about, I don't know if it was third grade, fourth grade, I don't know what it was, but we learned long division. And then when we get done, we learned short division, or the regular way that people do it. And I remember asking the teacher, why did we learn long division to begin with? Why didn't we just learn short division if we're never in? To be honest with you, she was a little miffed, but I think it's because she couldn't give me an answer. And the reason I'm telling you that is what I'm going to do here is I'm going to teach you to do this the right way, right from the start, because I think that makes more sense. All right. So I'm going to take my mouse and just click inside of this box right here. And if you go up to the top, you're going to see we've got 4 icons. The first one says new file. The next one says new folder. The next one says refresh Explorer. And the last one says collapse folders in Explorer. This is the Explorer part that's right in here. There's nothing in here yet. So we're going to put something in here right now. We're going to put in our first HTML file that we're going to add some code to in just a moment. The main file that you create for any website, all right, 999,999 times out of whatever, out of a million, I guess, is going to be index.html. So I'm going to click on this where it says new file, and it asks me for a name in this box here. And I'm going to type in index.html. Get used to putting everything into lowercase, like I'm doing here, and do not put blank spaces in file names. That's going to do nothing but possibly cause problems. So I've typed in here index.html and I hit enter. Now I'm in an empty file that's called index.html, and that's good. All right. Now, we're going to start typing some stuff in there in just a couple minutes, but there's a couple more things that we're going to do first. We're going to actually come in here and add 3 folders. We may or may not even get to do much in these folders today. It's okay. So I want you to not choose the new file, but the one next to it. Choose new folder, and it asks for a name. All right, and I'm going to put in here images, the word images, and hit enter. You'll notice that for my file, it's got a bracket, and for my folder, it's got a greater than sign. It's delineating or differentiating between the two. All right, we don't want this index.html inside of our images. We want it outside, and that's why I built that first. So we now have an images folder. I'm going to click in here again, and I'm going to click to add another folder. And this one is going to be called CSS, and I hit enter. You don't want the images folder inside of your CSS folder. You want these, so these two are just by themselves. Finally, I'm going to click in here one more time, and I'm going to click to create another folder, and I'm going to call this JS. Now let's take a minute and talk about everything that we just did. The CSS folder in a little bit is going to hold a file. That file will have CSS or cascading style sheet information in it. it's going to be remarkably simplistic because we haven't talked about CSS yet. We don't really get into that until about chapter 4, I think it is. But I just want to show you a little bit so you see it. The images folder, we're going to put a picture or two in there later. If you say, I don't know how to do that, I'm going to walk you through it. The JS we may not even use because that's for JavaScript. And again, remember, we're not going to really get into JavaScript till about day 30. So what we have in here so far are 3 folders, a CSS folder, an images folder, and a JS folder, and 1 file. Now, sometimes students ask me and they'll say, how come this index.html, how come that's not in a folder? It's just because historically you don't put HTML files in a folder. All right, that's kind of the standard or the way it is. Now, I want to show you one last thing, and then we're going to start typing in this file. All right, and that is if I go back, and you don't have to do this, but if I double click on first website, this is what I just did. When I did my git init, it made that git folder. Then we made index.html. It's empty, so you can see its size is 0 right now. Then we made an images folder. Then we made a CSS folder. Then we made a JS folder. So the CSS folder, the images folder, and the JS folder are all empty folders. The index.html is an empty file. All right. So I'm going to jump back into here, into Visual Studio Code where we just were. And if this isn't showing right here, if it's not showing, then just click on here, click on the file, and it should show up in here. And it should show you that you're working in index.html. Now, this is going to be one time. We're going to do some typing. And when we get done with the typing, I'm going to show you a shortcut. I'm going to replace these 12 lines that we're about to type in with one single character. Now, why am I doing that? Why am I not just showing you the single character first? Because this editor that we're using, Visual Studio Code, sometimes is a little bit finicky, and sometimes it doesn't work for people. So I want to put these lines in one at a time so I can explain to you what each one of these lines means. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in this. Just like that. So you can put that line in to start. And also, let me tell you, you can put doc type in all uppercase, all lowercase. You can mix the case. It doesn't matter. All right. What this line of code right here says is that we are using the latest and greatest version of HTML, which is HTML5. It's 5 point something. It doesn't matter. But it's the document type that we're using. Prior to HTML5, you had to type a lot more stuff in here. When they went back to HTML5 in the late 90s, they decided, let's make this simpler. Okay? This line, just so you know, technically, this line is not really HTML. It's letting the system know that we're using a certain version of HTML. All right. So now we're going to come in and we're going to start adding stuff. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to first do this incorrectly. So you don't have to type yet, but I'm going to put this in incorrectly like this. You may or may not have noticed when I put the HTML in and I put in the greater than sign, it made an ending tag for me automatically. Now, technically, this line here is not wrong. But a little bit later today, we're going to go in and do what's called validating our document. And we're going to get an error message when we validate, a warning message when we validate this document. It's a warning, not an error. And it's going to say, you didn't let me know what language you're, It's going to say, you didn't let me know what language you were using. So you really should type in this, lang equals EN. And that means that we're using English. If you don't put it in, you don't get any error. But again, when we come in and try to validate this, you get a warning message. And I'm going to show you that later. All right, so this is our bookends, so to speak. It's our beginning HTML tag, which we're letting it know that we're using the English language, and it's our ending HTML tag. All right. Then
I have a
underneath
quick
that,
question.
sure, go ahead.
So the right way is just having the equals English, and then without the HTML, that would be the correct way to do it. To
What I'm saying is, if you did it like this, you wouldn't get any error. The website would work just fine. But when you get done, it's always a good idea to go through and do what's called validating the website. We're going to run a tool against it later.
Okay.
All right. And when you run that tool, it's going to come up with a warning message, and it's going to say you should supply a language in here. Did I answer your question?
Kinda. So the HTML part that you have before the language, that is
Yes,
needed technically.
this is needed.
Okay.
Yes. And technically, that's an HTML page right now. I mean, you should have a head section and a body section in it, but technically that is a valid HTML document right now. It doesn't do a flipping thing, all right? But I guess, it is a regular document. So next I'm going to put in the head section. All right. Now, the head section, what you put in there is a bunch of stuff that does not appear on the web page itself. I want to show you something quickly. You don't have to change, but I want to show you this. If I go back to here, all right, and if you see up here, these are my different places, so I can go and flip through all these different things. But what's up here, this thing that's purple right here, hopefully you can see it. There's a blue one, there's a red one. We're going to have one of those later. That's called a favicon. And a favicon is one of the things that you can put into your head section. Plus, when you look up here, this says JP Scott, first website, etc. Not only can you put in the favicon rather, but you can put in some text there. We're going to be doing all of that stuff. All right. So when we're in here, there's other stuff that you can put in here too. We're going to put in 3 lines of code right now. And these 3 lines that we're putting in right now, they're all going to start with the word META, meta. These are 3 meta tags that I'm putting in right now. 3 meta tags. All right. Are they necessary? No. You are giving the browser more information, and they will become necessary later on in the semester. I'm going to put them in one at a time, and I'm going to explain what each one of these lines is doing. All right. So I'm going to start with this. Oh boy. All right. So that's the first one. What that says is the character set that we are using is UTF, which is an acronym. It's like Universal Transformation Format 8-bit or something like that. I'm going to give you a very quick little history, and I mean quick. All right. Back when I was the age of most of you in this class, you wouldn't have said the character set equals this. You would have said at that time, and I'm going to bring this back because this one's right. We would have said this. The character set equals ASCII. And ASCII is another acronym for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. All right. Well, what does this have to do with anything? Back in the day, when we weren't so much an international type of society, we were more a national type of society. The character set we used was ASCII. All right. And it had 255 characters in it. And that was every character on your keyboard that you can see, including upper and lowercase letters, numbers, special characters, etc., all that stuff. And then some characters you don't see, like the cent sign. If you say something is 53 cents, stuff like that. Well, that worked fine for a while. But as we started to change from a national society to an international society, that didn't work anymore because we didn't account for maybe Japanese characters, Chinese characters, Russian characters, etc. So what happened is they changed the main character set from ASCII to something called Unicode, Unicode. Whereas ASCII only allowed for 255 characters, Unicode now, for the last time I looked, it's over 100,000 characters. So Unicode will basically allow for any language there is, and there's still a lot of room for adaptation and for adding stuff later. The UTF-8 means we're using the Unicode character set. Why did they choose UTF-8? I didn't write it, so I really can't tell you that. But that's what happened. All right. So again, it says we're using the Unicode character set. Then we're going to put in another meta tag. All right. And again, it's a little bit quirky, but hopefully we're only going to have to do this once ever. And then from then on, when you do this, there's just going to be a shortcut that I'm going to show you in a minute. Now, you may or may not notice here, I'm getting right to the edge, right to the edge. There's two things here that I can do. I can automatically turn on word wrapping in here. So I can click view and I can go to word wrap, and you'll notice how it moved it down. It's still on one line. All right, I can do that. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But this thing that's over here, I really don't need this anymore. All right. And what I mean is I don't want to close it, but I can hide it by clicking right here. All right. So if I click again, it comes back. If I click again, it gets hidden. All right. Now, this is a fix that, for lack of better words, I'm just trying to be very, very simplistic here. This basically says, hey, if we're using any old version of Internet Explorer, as far as the browser is, as far as we're concerned, treat it like we're using Edge. So in other words, it's a Microsoft hack or a Microsoft fix. All right. Okay. Then next, we're going to put in one more meta tag. This is a little more typing. And I will go over everything as far as what this means after we get done. All right, and I believe this is going to need a semicolon on the end, and then this. All right, in fact, it probably doesn't even need a semicolon. I don't remember if it does or not. We'll find out. All right, now, this is the longest line we've typed in. When we get to chapter 7, and chapters 7, 8, 9, and 10, we're going to learn something that's called responsive web design. I mentioned this yesterday. It was in chapter 1, and it's the idea that your web page will look good whether you're looking at it using a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, a phone, or whatever. All right. Well, whatever you're using to look at your website is known as the viewport. That's what that thing right there is. Where it says content equal and it has all that other stuff in it, it's telling it that we want to use the entire width of whatever device we're using, and we want to use it at 100%, which is 1.0. That's the best I can tell you for that right now. All right, that's about it. Okay, and then a couple more lines. We're going to put in another line, and it's going to say title. And I want you to really see what this title is about. So I just want you for now, you can change it later if you want to. Just put in your first name or put in your name. That's fine. Now, typically that wouldn't be what you'd put in for the title, but it's okay. All right, we're going to put in 2 more lines, well, 3 with a blank line, and then we're going to run this. So body, just like that. So what we put in here right now is what's known as the shell for us creating a website. Okay, there's nothing in the body right now, so we can just type in the word hello. That's fine. You can put anything you want in there. I can't see your screens anyway. All right. Now we're going to run this, and we're going to run it in 2 different ways. First, I'm going to show you the harder way to do it. And you don't even have to do this. You can just watch. Then I'm going to show you the easier way to do it. That one you'll want to basically follow along. So I'm going to do a file, and I'm going to click Save All right here. So everything has been saved. Okay. And then just for a second, remember, this is the only actual code that we're going to see on the screen in a minute. I'm going to get out of here. You don't have to do this. I'm going to double click on first website, and I'm going to double click on this. And I know it's small, but there's my hello. And I realize that's not much. I get it. All right. Now that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's kind of a pain to have to keep getting out of here all the time and then double clicking on this. And you don't have to do that. So what you're going to learn right now is how to add the first extension that you'll want to use into Visual Studio Code. And it's remarkably simple. All right. You come over to here, and you can see we've got 4 different icons here and then 2 at the bottom. All right. I want to come down to the 4th icon because it says extensions. All right. And I want you to click that. And there are literally in here, if you told me there's 1,000 different things you could add, I'd definitely believe you. All right. So in this extension here, I want you to type in live server. 2 words, live server. And you'll notice that one of the things that comes up, the first one just says live server. All right. And there are some other ones that are in there as well. Now, mine say install over here, and this one doesn't say install. All right. Yours might. All right. But if I click on this, I've already got mine installed. So what I'd like you to do is I'm hoping that on yours, it says install right there. Just all you have to do is literally click on the button that says install. Okay. And when you do that, live server will be installed. Now, I'll tell you what, I'll uninstall it because I've got it installed. I'm now uninstalling it. So now notice it says reload required. That's fine. But I'm going to come back over here. Now I'm going to click where it says install. And now it's installed. All right. Why does that even matter? Well, let's close this. So I'm going to close this live server thing. And now I can close this as well. So I'm just going to click over here and then click again to remove it. Now, when I want to run this, I can just right mouse click in an empty area of my screen, and I can choose open with live server. All right. And there it is. Right there. And what's kind of neat then is if I go back to here, and I'm just as an example, if I change this from Jeff Scott to, or from hello to hello world, something like that, and I save, all right, and I've got my index.html, all right, so if I go in there and do that, and then I go back again out here to my live server, notice it's already been updated. I don't have to click refresh or anything like that. Now, you don't have to use this, but live server is a way to have your program run faster and better. All right, by using that extension. Okay, so right now we don't have very much in here. Okay. And I sat and thought about it, and I thought about, well, what do I want you to do in here? So we're going to create a website. It's going to be simple, but it's going to have a lot of stuff in it. And as we move back into the book, when we get introduced to certain things in the book, we'll come back to the website and put them in. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a website that somebody could conceivably come to find out how to make chocolate chip cookies. All right. So right in here for my body, okay, we're going to get rid of this hello world that's in here. And don't put this in yet, but I'm going to put in chocolate chip cookies. Okay. And that's fine. So I can come in here and do this and save, and I can go back out into here and notice it changed. That's fine. But normally at 100%, it's going to look like this, which is kind of hard to see. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my first HTML tags in here. And these are header tags. And I'd like you to do this, please. So I'd like you to put in an H1 tag and then put in chocolate chip cookies and an ending H1 tag, just like I have right here. And I'll give you a second to do that. I'm going to do a file save. But what I want to show you quickly is notice that when I go back, it's a little bit bigger than it was before, and it's bold. All right. When you put this in, there are literally 6 different header tags that you can use. You can use an H1, an H2, an H3, an H4, an H5, or an H6. The bigger the number, the smaller the heading is. Not bigger, so smaller is bigger here, which kind of sounds a little weird, but that's the way they set it up. But you'll notice, so you saw the size of this. All right. So keep your mind wrapped around that size, so to speak. And you don't have to change this, but I'm going to change it purposely. And I'm going to make this an H6, and that one will become an H6. And notice that once I save it and I go back again, it got a heck of a lot smaller. All right. Now, a couple things about this. First thing, you typically only have one H1 tag on a web page. All right. It's kind of like if you can imagine a newspaper that had a main headline. That's kind of what we're talking about here. All right. So we've got this thing. Again, there's not much in here right now, but it has given me the chance to explain to you a heading tag. So you can see how to make a heading tag. It's got a beginning tag and it's got an ending tag. All right. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is, and again, how we do this, what we do here is totally up to us. I'm doing this, and I really mean it. I have no notes here. I'm doing this off the top of my head. So is there a chance I could screw something up? Hey, it's me. And if you know me well enough, there sure as heck is. All right. So I'm going to come down here. And what I want to do next is I want to put in a picture of the chocolate chip cookies that we're going to make. All right. Well, right now I don't have any pictures. I don't have anything. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go out and somewhere in here, I'm going to go out to Google Images, which is images.google.com. All right. Images.google.com. Later on in the semester, I'll show you other sites that you can go to get different images. All right, but I wanted to do it like this. And I'm going to come in here and under, so you'll notice it doesn't say Google here, it says Google Images. So I'm going to come in here and type in chocolate chip cookies. And there literally are probably thousands of pictures that are in here that we can use. All right, I kind of like this one right here. So if you are following along with me, all right, if I click on it, it'll show me, it says it'll be 637 by 637. The key thing there is it's going to be a square. It's going to be at the same height and width. All right. So that didn't do anything yet. I need to save that. There's two things that I can do here. I want to show you both, but I'm not trying to confuse. When I do this first one, please do not follow along. All right. When I do the second one, I will want you to follow along. When I right mouse click on this picture, there's different things that I can do. In a couple minutes, we're going to save this image. So we'll choose the save image as. Sometimes you don't want to save an image. Sometimes all I want is basically this internet address. So the first time I do it, I'm going to type in copy link address. I'm going to click on that. Nothing magical happened. All right. But when I go back again into my file, now I've got to put in an image. So I put in an image like that. And that requires two things. The first thing is source. And what that is what's the image? Now I'm going to paste in what I just put in, and this might be real big. You can see it is. Okay. So that was the first thing that I put in there. And what's the other thing that we put in there then? We type in alt equals, and I'm going to put in here picture of chocolate chip cookies. And I want to explain both of these. Before I do, let me save this and let me go back into live server. All right. Well, something got goofed up. This is the alt picture of chocolate chip cookies. So it didn't like what I put in there. I don't know why, so I'll take a quick look at it. I thought it would have had my picture, so the under the source equals here, but for some reason, something in here it doesn't like. I miscopied or something. It's okay, because I want to show you now, I want to show it to you the other way. So I'm going to get rid of everything that's in there. And don't type yet, don't worry about it. I'm going to just totally get rid of this for now, and I'll put it back in a moment. All right. I'm going to go back. Whoops. I'm going to go back again. And I'm going to go back again in here into my Google Images. And on that picture, I'm now going to right mouse click and choose Save Image As. Right there. And now it's asking me, well, where do you want to save this thing? Well, I'm going to show you because this is where I put my stuff. So I'm going to click on Desktop. And then I'm going to click on First Website. Double click on that. And then I'm going to double click on Images. That's where I want to put it. Now notice the name it gave it down here. It's called Bakery Style Chocolate Chip Cookies. So bakery style chocolate chip cookies 9 637x637 1.jpg. That's way too big a name as far as I'm concerned. So other than the .jpg on the end, we can leave that name. That's totally fine. But I'm going to get rid of everything before the .jpg, and I'm going to put CCC for chocolate chip cookie. You can leave yours the way it is. It doesn't hurt a thing. And then I'm going to click Save. So now what I should have is inside of my images folder, I've got a picture of chocolate chip cookies. There it is. All right. And again, I don't want to get too wrapped up in this. We're going to have a whole chapter on images. So if it's hard to follow along, I'm not trying to do this quickly. All right. But I don't want to waste too much time either. I want us to be able to get through chapters 2 and 3 today. All right. So I'm going to go back into my Visual Studio Code. And now I'm going to type in here IMG for image. And I'm going to say source equal. And I have to let it know where it lives. It's in that images folder / and there it is, ccc.jpg. So there's that. And then I've got alt equals. and I'm going to say, just like we did before, picture of chocolate chip cookies. Just like that. Now, let's look at this line and just break it down. IMG is an HTML tag. It's an image tag. Source means where does this image live? And I'm letting it know that it lives in the images folder and that its name is ccc.jpg. JPG is one of the different image types you can go over. It's called a JPEG image, and it stands for Joint Photographic Group. It's no big thing. Alt is used in two ways. You already saw one of them. If you remember when we did the alt to begin with, since I must have had the wrong address in there, rather than showing the picture, it showed the alt tag. Alt means alternative text. Now, also, if you've got somebody who's using your website who is either blind or legally blind, where they've got a screen reader, then rather than seeing a picture, which doesn't make any sense to them if they can't see, their screen reader will read to them and will say picture of chocolate chip cookies. Now notice if I do a file, save, and if I go back out again, there it is. So that's what I've got so far. Now you could say whatever you want, and you could say, well, that's way too big a picture. There's ways that you can make this smaller. You can literally go in and make it smaller, or you can go in and use CSS to make it smaller. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. It's totally fine. All right. One more thing I wanted to do was to put a little bit of text down here, just a little bit of text. Now, when you put in some text, okay, when you actually put in text, a lot of times when you are creating a website, you create what's called filler text. All right, it's also called lipsum text or lorem ipsum text. So I wanted to show you something, and I can literally go out to lipsum, I think it's lipsum.org, we're going to find out. And I can grab text. What do I mean? I can go over here and say, I want 3 paragraphs of text and tell it to give it to me. And there's 3 paragraphs. I can go in and copy. I could put 33 if I wanted that much. And actually, that's a little bit more than I think I need. So I'm only going to grab 2 of these. Okay. And I'm going to copy them to the clipboard. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to paste them down here. Okay. Just like this. All right. The problem is right now, as far as HTML is concerned, they're not paragraphs. They're just text I put in. To make them paragraphs, I've got to come into the beginning here and put in a p tag. And then at the end of the paragraph, I've got to put in an ending p tag. All right, and I don't need that one anymore. And I've got to do the same thing to the other one. So I'm going to give it a beginning p tag, and then at the end, I'm going to give it an ending p tag. And again, if you think, well, you're going way too fast, everything I do, I'm doing here, I'm going to save for you. All right. So let me do a file save. And let me go back into here. And there's our site. Now I realize it doesn't look very nice. There's nothing over here. You're going to learn how to do all that stuff. But what we've done in a matter of less than an hour is we have gone in here, we have used our new editor, we have created a template, all right, and we have created a heading tag, we have added an image, and we have added a couple paragraphs of text. And that's pretty good. All right. That's what I wanted to start with. All right. So with that said, I'm going to jump back into the book, and you're going to notice that some of the stuff that we'll hit on in the book, we've already talked about. So yesterday we went over chapter 1, the introduction to web development, and now we're going into chapter 2, how to code, test, and validate a web page. All right. So as it says, you'll learn how to create and edit HTML and CSS files. All right, we'll look at the CSS in a little bit. And they'll tell you in here how to use VS Code. I've shown you much of this stuff already. Okay, so let's just jump into it. And the HTML syntax, remember HTML is an acronym for Hypertext Markup Language. You're not technically writing code yet. You're writing markup. All right, what's the difference? Well, really, the main difference is all we're doing is we're showing how something should look. We're not having some of the stuff you'd have in a programming language like if statements and loops and other things like that that we'll get to at a later time. All right. So the first thing they mention in here is that doc type declaration. Well, we already talked about what that was, and they show you right here what everything is going to look like. So there was your doc type. There was your HTML tag. They didn't put in there the language equal English there, but it is in down here. All right. We put in more meta tags than they did. Okay. We put in more meta tags than they did. All right. I want to show you something very quickly before we go on, and you can all try this to see if it works. If it doesn't, I'm not sure why it doesn't. All right. But if I go back here, and I'm just going to create a new file just so I've got something here. All right, this is going to be, I'll get rid of it in a minute, but I want to click right here in the empty area, and I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to call this hello.html. Again, I'm not going to save this file. So hello.html. Now, when we did the index, we keyed in these lines here at the beginning, and then we keyed in these lines here. All right, and I told you that rather than doing that, we can replace that with just a single keystroke. That keystroke is an exclamation point. So if I put in an exclamation point like this into an empty file like that, and I hit the tab key, look what happened. All right. What this is there is a built-in tool in Visual Studio Code that's called Emmet. EMMETT, I believe. Now, if yours didn't work, okay, you probably don't have Emmet loaded. It should be loaded by default. In fact, I think if you come in here to the extensions and we come in and put in Emmet, see, it doesn't even find it. All right. It's supposed to be in there automatically for you. But I had students last semester who told me, well, mine didn't work. All right. And it's weird. I don't know why that would happen. And I had at least one who told me it didn't work almost all semester. Then one day, for the heck of it, he tried it and it worked just fine. All right. Not having written the software, I can't tell you why that's the case. But what I'm telling you is rather than having to type all this in now, and I did it for two reasons. So I could explain it to you line by line as I was typing it in, and to show you that it's much easier than doing this to just put in an exclamation point and then hit the tab key. I believe, I'm going to try it right now, that if I put in an exclamation point and hit enter instead of tab, it also works. So you'd want to change this from document to whatever you wanted your title to be, and then you could start putting stuff in. All right. So again, that's using Emmet. There's other ways and other things you can do with Emmet that we'll get to at a later time. All right. But I just wanted to show that to you. Okay. So
Professor, real quick, I
Sure.
think someone's waiting in the lobby.
All right. Well, just so you know, if there is somebody in the lobby, you guys can let them in.
Okay. All right.
So, I mean, I'll do it. I have no problem at all letting them in. People know, people. Not sure who's trying. Did you let them in?
No, but they're not at the They're not trying to
Okay.
get in anymore.
All right. Not sure what happened, but if that ever happens, you guys can let people in, just so you know
Sure
that.
thing.
Okay. All right. So they're showing a document here, and it's not as extensive as ours is. It only has one meta tag in it. It has an H1 and it has some paragraphs. I decided to start the way I did based off of this document, so you would have some kind of an idea, all right, of what the stuff in here means. Typically, what they'll do in this book is they'll do something like this, then they'll explain what each thing in here is, all right? Then they'll go through and maybe I guess it's not here yet, but eventually they'll show you what it'll look like. All right. So the next thing that's in here is how to code elements and tags. You've looked at some of this already. We did an H1 tag as they show on the top there. We did an P tag as they show on the top there. Now I want to show you something that may not make any sense to you right now. But if I come in here and I'm gonna put another paragraph in here. You don't have to do this. I'm gonna remove it right away. But I'm gonna put in another paragraph right here. And I'm gonna have it say, hello, my name is Jeff Scott. Okay? So if I save this, again, I'm gonna get rid of this paragraph in a moment. All right, but if I save this and go back out into live server, down at the bottom, it's a little hard to see, but it's got down here, hello, my name is Jeff Scott. Big deal. All right, why did I show you that? Because if I do this, notice what I'm doing here. I'm putting each one of these things on its own line. So now it says, hello, my name is Jeff Scott. And I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to refresh, and it didn't change. It's still all on one line. And the reason for that is when I'm inside of a tag here, and also notice my editor changed it back too. All right. But if I'm in here and if I want these to be all on different morning. It says that I'm on. Can you hear me?
Can now. You
I
went
can
away
now,
for a
yeah.
second.
All right. Yeah. And like I said, I don't know what the heck the problem is. It went out before for like about 10 seconds and then came back on again. So what I'm telling you quickly is if I wanted this to go over multiple lines, I don't know why I'd want to do this, but if I did, I'm putting in this BR tag. The BR tag does not have an open and a close. It's just BR. And it stands basically for line break. So note the difference now. I've got a BR between every word. And now when I come back in here, now each thing is on its own line. Hello, my name is Jeff Scott is all on separate lines. Now, I don't know why I'd want to do that, but I wanted to show you this. And notice that the editor changed this from a BR to a BR space slash. It used to be mandatory that you write a BR tag like that. All right, you no longer have to. I didn't even realize that that the editor changed that for me. And if yours wasn't changed, don't worry about it. I've got other extensions that I've got on my system that you probably don't have. And that's no biggie because you will have them as we go on in here. All right, so that was another tag. That was a BR line break tag. All right, the image tag we've looked at. And again, I mentioned what source was. I mentioned what alt was. All right, here they talk about nesting. Take a good look at this picture right here, please. Right there. The P tags are at the beginning and the end. The I tag is here and here. This is wrong, where it says incorrect nesting. You put tags inside of other tags. That I tag is for italicizing. Don't worry about it. We're going to look at that in just a moment. All right. Okay, so looking at the clock, it is now 9 o'clock. We're going to take our first break. We're going to break until 10 after 9. We're going to pick it up and continue on. All right, it is 9:10, so I'm going to continue on. The next section talks about attributes here, and I'm going to show them to you, but I'm going to show them to you like this. This right here is an image tag. All right. This is the tag image. This is one of the attributes, source. This is the value of that attribute. This is another attribute here, alt, and that's the value. So it's kind of like if I said to you, all right, what's your name? And you told me your first name and your last name. And I said name here. And I said first name equals Jeff, last name equals Scott. Well, then the first name and the last name would be attributes. So attributes allow you to have to put in, additional information about tags. Some tags don't have attributes. The P tag here doesn't have an attribute. The H1 tag here doesn't have an attribute. The BR tag doesn't. So some tags have attributes, and with some tags, the attributes are mandatory, and with some tags, all right, they don't have them, and with some tags, they're optional. I know that's a little confusing, but it's just a bunch of stuff that we've got to get through. And then down here, they talk about Boolean. If you've never heard of something that's Boolean, Boolean is something that has two values, true or false. So for instance, if I said, are you married? And you said yes, then your is married, if I called it that, would be set equal to true. If I said, are you married? And you said no, then your is married would be equal to false. There's no gray area to the computer. When you're working with Booleans, it's true or false. Now, some books will say true is yes or true is 1, where false is no or false is 0. But normally they're looked at as being true and false. All right. So when you use the attribute, it's the name, an equal sign, and then the value. When you put in these values, you can use either double quotes here or single quotes. I'm going to use double quotes probably just about all the time because that's what I'm used to doing. All right, comments. Well, wouldn't it be kind of nice here if we wanted to go back to where we were writing this, and I'm going to get rid of this paragraph with my name in it because I don't need that. But let's just pretend for a second that we wanted to put a comment in here, okay? Then we wanted it to say, our site is going to be about chocolate chip cookies. Well, I can't just sit there and do this. If I say, this is a site about chocolate chip cookies, let me just copy this. If I put that in like this and I save it, and I go back in here into live server, it's right there. I don't want this to show. I want this to be invisible. And the way I can do that is I start it with a less than sign, an exclamation point, and 2 minus signs like that. And then I can put in whatever I want, and I end it with 2 minus signs and a greater than sign. Try that again. It only took 1 minus. There we go. That's now a comment. So that's how you add comments into HTML. To begin the comment, it's a less than sign followed by an exclamation point and 2 hyphens or minus signs. Then you can have it over as many lines as you want, but you must end it with 2 minus signs and a greater than sign. Now, just today, I've probably given you 6 different tags. And you know what? After a while, it's like, my head's hurting. I can't remember all this stuff. So just to show you this, and I'll make sure that I put this out there a little later today, but I'm going to come in here and in my empty address bar, I'm going to type in W3 schools, HTML tag list, like that. And there is an HTML tag list. It says XP course. I don't want that one. Let's see. They're in here someplace. HTML list, HTML tag list. There it is. It's a ways down. All right. Well, so this is a list of right here. These are all the tags that make up HTML. I don't know how many there are. I've never counted them. All right. But you can go out. In fact, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that into here. I'll make that my comment. So you can go out there if you want and find out about any existing HTML tags, the ones we've talked about and the several we have yet to talk about. All right. Comments are ignored. Comments are ignored by the browser itself. You can still see that they're in there. So if we do that like we did yesterday, where we right mouse clicked and did a view source, you can still see them. They don't show on the web page itself, though. And I mentioned before that what we put into our head section, all right, what you put in the head does not show on the web page, but what you put in the body section does show on the web page. So that's the web page content. All right. Now, the next thing that's discussed in here is CSS. All right. And that's, that's its own thing. And you might, rather than go over it like this, I'm going to show you some CSS. So feel free to follow along. Or again, if it's easier for you just to watch, not a problem. But I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to bring this back up again. All right. Now, right now, there's nothing in my CSS folder. So I'm going to click on the folder itself. Then I'm going to click New File. And I'm going to call this new file styles.css. So remember, our HTML files, and I don't need this hello anymore, so I'm going to get rid of it. That HTML files must end with an extension of .html. CSS files must end with an extension of .css. We're going to put a few things in here. All right. Why? So I can show you what these are about. So I'm going to say, hey, for the body of my document, which means basically for every part of my document, these are called curly braces right here. All right. So inside of here, I'm going to put what? Well, I want my background color. I'm just going to make it, I can make it anything I want, but I'm going to make it gold. All right. And I'm going to take my color, which is the color of my text, and I'm going to make that green like that. Okay. So I'm saying that I want a gold background and green text. Okay. Well, then a couple of other things, just so you see these. My image that we put in here, it was pretty big. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to attempt to say that the width of the image, I'm going to make it 25% like that. And that should, hopefully, is going to make my image 1/4 the size it currently is. Now, if I save this and I go back to here and I run the program, absolutely nothing changed. Nothing at all. And why is that? Well, let's see if we can figure out why nothing changed. Okay. Well, we've got this file. That's fine. And we've got this file. And again, that's fine. All right. But this file right here, our HTML file, does not know about the existence of our CSS file. So we have to tell it. How do we do that? Well, I'm going to type it in manually, and then I'm going to show you a shortcut. You can use either way. You must say here, link rel equals style sheet, href equals css/styles.css, like that. All right. Now, let's see if it works, first of all. So I'm going to save, because I could have typed in something incorrect. I don't think I did, but let's see. So I'm going to go back to here, and you'll notice I've now got a gold background. All right, it didn't change the size, so I did something wrong there, but we'll fix that in a minute. But I've got green text as well. I wish that the size of my paragraph text was bigger. I wish it was bigger than it is. So I'm going to go back again into this CSS file, and I'm going to tell it, hey, for paragraphs, which are a P, I want the font size to be equal to 1 rem. And if you don't know what this means, this is what the later chapters are going to be all about. All right. So let me do a file save. And let me go back and refresh. Now, it looks like it already was that size. So let's make it even bigger. Let's try making it 2 rem. All right. File save. Go back again. And you can see now the size is bigger. All right. I thought by setting the width, let's see. And hey, I'm a Googler. How to decrease the size of an image, CSS. How to resize images, CSS. If, okay, that will scale down to what it has to, but never up to larger. Yeah, okay. How do you shrink an image file size? There's a real easy way to do it. I just don't remember what it is. Let's see if it's in here.
I just changed my width to 5% and it got really small.
Okay, well, and like I said, with this, all right, let's try that.
But also my text didn't get any bigger when I went to 2 rem, so.
Okay, all right. Well, there it's smaller. Okay. Again, you'll have all this stuff when we get done. All right. But I'm just trying to run through a couple of things with you here. All right. And let's go back. So this is a CSS file. This right here is called the selector. I'm telling it to select the body. This is basically an attribute. I'm saying for the body's background color, I want it to be gold. There's a lot of ways that you can do colors. You can see one of them right here. Don't worry about it. Now we're going to have a chapter where we talk all about color. So this is our background color. This is our text color. These have to be within these curly braces or it won't work. Also, you should put a semicolon at the end of each line. This says I want all images to display at 5% of their current size. This says I want the font size, and you need the hyphen there, to be 2 rem, which should be about double what it normally would be. Now, there's all sorts of stuff that we can do in here too. So for instance, if I wanted the background color of my paragraphs, I don't know why I would do this, but I could say, just so you see it, I could say background color, and then I could say white. All right. And once I save this, you can see how they change to white. All right. Again, this is all stuff that we're going to be going over. So if it doesn't make a boatload of sense now, it's okay. It really and truly is. Finally, what I had to do here, this brought this file in. Now I said there was a shortcut, so let's look at the shortcut. All right, I think I can just type in link and hit tab, and there you go. So I still have to type in CSS styles.css, but that's another Emmet shortcut, and there are a lot of them. We'll look at some of them as we go on, as the semester goes on. Okay, so that brought the CSS file in. And again, I'm trying to keep up pretty much lockstep with the way that it's being shown in the book here. So a weird thing is, notice that when you go and you put comments into CSS, you do it differently. You don't use that less than sign followed by a exclamation point followed by a minus minus, then your comment, then a minus minus with a greater than sign. You do it like this. You start it with a forward slash and an asterisk, and you end it with an asterisk and a forward slash. And again, it can be multiple lines long. All right. This is pretty complex what they're showing here, considering we're just getting into it. But I just showed you some style rules. I showed you the selector, the declaration. All right, the selector, the property, the value, and the whole thing together, which is the declaration. And they go into some of the stuff with the basic selectors here. I don't want to get too into this because I don't want to confuse anyone. All right, so I'll let you read that. These IDs and classes, we're going to be talking about them in a lot of depth and breadth of coverage. So what's the difference between an ID and a class? You can, an ID, if I call something like it's shown there copyright, I can only have one of them on a page. Class, I can use as many times on a page as I want to. You'll notice when I'm telling, this is a CSS file, when I'm saying that something is an ID, I must at the beginning of it put a hashtag, £, whatever you call that. And if I'm saying something is a class, it must start with a period. All right. Now, how to use the VS Code, I'm going to let you read that on your own because we've gone over most of this. You know, how to go and add a folder, how to go and add a file. We did all this stuff. All right. How to edit a file. Well, that's what we've been doing. Okay, so you can go ahead and take a look at that. How to use the hint extension to find errors. I don't even have that turned on. So you can read that, and if you're interested in it, yeah, give it a look. Sometimes you'll put an extension in here, and you might find it more confusing than helpful. Now, I want you to see something here, and that is, if you notice, when I put in those yours might not been different colors, or yours might not be different colors. There is something, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. Going to extensions here. I thought it was called Brackets Colorizer. Here, I'll try to get that for you next class, okay? But it might just be called Colorizer. I don't remember what it is. Color highlighter? No, that's not it either. I think I should be able to go into here. My settings. We're going to get into all this stuff. I'm not trying to confuse you right now. So let me get out of here. I don't want to confuse people. All right. How to edit a CSS file? Well, I kind of showed you that as well. All right. The only way that you're going to learn, you're not going to learn this by sitting here and listening to me. You're not. You're going to learn it by just opening up a file and starting to play with this stuff yourselves. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to save this when I'm done, so you can bring it down if you want to and make any change in the world you want to make to it. All right. Live server, we've already looked at. How to test and debug a web page. Well, there's going to be times when you try to do something and you're like, I made this change and nothing happened. All right. Or I did this and why does it look so goofy? Well, let me show you a time where something like that could happen. Let's go over to here, and where we've got our paragraphs here, let's remove this ending paragraph tag. So technically it's wrong right now. And I'm going to save this. And I'm going to go back in again. And it doesn't look any different. So this is a time where it still appears to work. You know, like, why does that work? All right. And it's some of the mystery of the language, so to speak. There are certain errors that you can make in HTML that even if you do have the error, it'll still work. All right. And I'm not sure why that is, but it just is. All right. Now, if this, again, this is garbage text. If you misspell that, of course, the system's not going to find it. But if I come in here and here's my link tag, all right, and I'm going to remove that like that. All right. And I'm going to save this. Now I'm going to go back and look. I don't know what this is going to look like. All right. It looks like it didn't hurt anything, but I'm going to show you where it will hurt something. Okay. All right. One of the things that we're going to be getting to in just a second is how to put a hyperlink in here. So let's say at the beginning here, where this says lorem ipsum dolor, let's say I wanted that to go to Rankin Technical College's homepage. I don't know why, but we're just pretending that's what we wanted. So I come in here and I put in yet another tag that's called an anchor tag. And I type in href equals, and I'll put in here https://rankin.edu, just like that. All right. And then I'll end my A tag after lorem ipsum dolor. So right there. Okay. So what did that do? It's easiest to do that and then show you. All right. So I'm going to come back to here and notice I've now got that. And when I click, it brings up Rankin's webpage. Okay. Well, what was that big a thing? No, but I want to show you something. And that is sometimes what happens is you forget to put this thing in here. Okay, there's nothing. Now I remove that ending tag. That doesn't look very good. All right. So sometimes when you make an error like this, it's very obvious that you have an error. All right. And sometimes you'll be able to figure it out right away. And sometimes you'll have to go through your code and take a look at it before it'll make some sense to you. All right. So I put that back in. I saved it. I'm going back in and you'll notice, oops, maybe I didn't save it. It's now back to the way I wanted it. And speaking of that tag, what is this? This is called an anchor tag. The A is for anchor. The href is for hypertext reference. It's where you want it to go. When I click this tag, I want it to go here, which is Rankin's website. So this is the tag. That's the beginning of the tag. The tag is A. Href is the attribute. https://rankin.edu is the value of the href attribute. This is the end of the tag. All right. So I'm showing you a little of testing and debugging in here. So, all right, validating. There's different ways that you can validate. I'm going to show you the way I use, and then I'll show you another way. They're both basically the same thing. It's just kind of two sides of the same coin, or however you want to look at it. All right.
Quick
So the
question.
first thing, yes.
What exactly does validate
Okay.
HTML mean?
What it means, if a page is valid, that means that it is past the test of the people who created the validator, and that's W3 schools, or I'm sorry, that's W3C. And it says that there are no errors or warnings on the page. Now, you might say, okay, I still don't know what it means. Many, many, many sites don't do this. I'd say probably more sites don't than do. My guess is if I brought in Rankin Technical College's homepage and tried to validate it, I wouldn't be surprised if we had hundreds of either errors or warnings or both. All right, when you're validating it, what you're doing is you're saying you have written your HTML in a way that it meets the HTML standards. That's what it's saying. All right. So there's two different validators. There's one for your HTML and there's one for your CSS. So I'm going to type in here HTML validator. Okay. And there are several validators. I use this one because it's from the W3C itself. Okay. So I click on here. So it's validate.w3.org. And I click on here and it says, okay, what do you want to validate? And there's different ways that you can do this. All right. You can validate by file upload. So I could put my file in here. Where's that file? On my desktop. It's under first website and it's index.html. So I can do that and then click check. And if it worked, you'll notice it's got something it doesn't like. And I think I spelled this wrong. I think that should be EQUI. So you can see I made a mistake. I didn't do that on purpose. All right, but it's flagged it in here. Okay, so let's see. What I'm going to do very quickly is I'm going to go back to this file, and where I typed in EQU, I'm going to put an I in there. All right, I think I misspelled it. So I'm going to do a file, save, and let me go back. Whoops, let me go back in again to my validator. All right, and back up to where I just was, choose my file, index, click check. And now you see it still has something it doesn't like. So I don't know what that is. I'd have to go look through it. I've got this, looks like I've got something with a G in it. So I screwed up someplace. All right. Now, if it comes up clean, there's only one error right now. All right. But if it comes up clean, it'll basically give you a little thing that you can literally, it'll come up with a little like icon that you can put at the bottom of a page if you want to, that says it's passed validation. All right. If your page does not pass validation, it really and truly doesn't hurt anything. All right. But what will happen is when you take your tests, you will be asked to validate your pages. And if they don't validate, all right, you'll be asked to try to fix them. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to come up now and I'm going to type in CSS validator. Okay, and it's called jigsaw.w3.org. I don't know why, but I'm going to click in there. And again, I'm going to click by file upload. And again, I'm going to choose, but now it's the CSS file. All right, and when I click check, now it's clean. And it actually gave me the little insignia that says, hey, you can put that in there. It's clean. It met all validations. All right, so one of mine did and one of mine did not. You'll notice that if I come back in here and as an example, I'm going to purposely put an error in here. So I'm going to remove that right there. Okay, it's already giving me an error right here, but I'm going to do a file, save. I purposely put an error in here. I don't have an ending semicolon. And I'm going to come back again. Oops. I'm going to come back again into my validator. And I'm going to back up and I'm going to put the file in again. And click check. All right. Sorry, we found the following errors. And it tries to show you where the error is. All right. So that's the process of validation. When I put this back in again and do a file save, I want to show you the other way. This is the way I usually do it. There's nothing wrong with what I just showed you. Nothing. But I usually highlight all of it. So the whole file is highlighted. I do a Control A to highlight it and a Control C to copy it. Then I go back to my validator. And rather than coming in here and choosing file upload, I do direct input and I just paste it in and click check. Either way will work just fine. All right. And there are other validators. I'm just recommending that the ones that you use are the two that I've shown you at jigsaw.w3.org, and that's for CSS, and at validator.w3.org, and that's for your HTML. All right. No, and the question that got asked before was a real good question. Exactly what is this doing? You're showing that you have passed, you have adhered to the rules. That's what it's doing. All right. What else? I don't know exactly what else it's supposed to mean. And there is still a problem in here. It says it must have a content attribute. Content equals, for some reason, oh, looks like it wants IE dash edge. And I think I put IE equal edge. So let's see. Again, I don't do this on purpose. I make plenty of mistakes without trying to. So let's come in here where we've got IE dash, and let's see, maybe it should be equal. Oops. I don't know. So let's go do another file, save. And then I'm going to come back here. If this doesn't fix it, I'm not going to go on because I don't want to spend way too much of our time doing this. So let me go back again. Index.html, check. And it all worked. IE equal edge. Brother, did I lose you guys again? All right. Hopefully you're back. This should say IE equal edge right there. And I spelled that wrong. I spelled it as EQUV. It should have been EQUIV. That's just another reason that you want to use Emmet and use that exclamation point. All right, because it's just less that you have to type in, so there's less of a chance you're going to screw it up. All right. There we go. So I showed you the validator. There's more in here. This is the same thing I just showed you. And this is the other one for the CSS. So we have run through it. So that is it for this chapter. All right. So I want to go ahead here, and I want to jump right into chapter 3. Now, I don't ever want to give you so much in one period that your head explodes. All right, figuratively. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through chapter 3 here, and we're going to see what time it is. Now, tomorrow is supposed to be a lab period. It will be. But if we don't have time today I already told you I was going to do a practice test with you, a practice homework with you, and a practice lab with you. If we don't have time to do that today, I will do them tomorrow. All right. If you choose not to join, I will tape that. All right. It will be taped. All right. So chapter 3 is on how to use HTML to structure a web page. So in many ways, the web page that we've created in many ways has no structure to it. And if you say, I don't know what you mean, you will as we go through the chapter here. Okay. In fact, if I go out to our friend here and I put in HTML page structure, W3 schools, there it is. That picture that you see right here, that's how we're going to be, in many ways, laying out our page. We are going to have a header section at the top. All right. The nav section, I don't agree with what the authors of the book say. They say you should put the nav inside of your body. I believe that it belongs in the header section. Now, if you look on the screen here, that is not the head that we've been working with. That is header. All of the stuff that you see in this picture right here, all of it goes inside of the body. So the header is where you would put things like, we're going to put our nav in our header. So, typically this is what I'm talking about right here. That's the header. And what we'll put in here is our own logo, and then we'll put links in so we can jump to other pages. We only have one page so far, and that's okay. All right. And nav, again, is the actual navigation section. We only have one page right now, so we haven't made a navigation section. All right. There's actually one more section that's not shown in here because it's optional. And that is something that's called main, M-A-I-N. And if you have a main, typically you'd put the section and the article and the aside inside of main. Main is main content. All right. So we're going to put a little bit of this stuff in here right now. All right. So we can put a little bit of rhyme, reason, etc. So we can set this thing up. But before we do, all right, I just want to mention what is shown on here, okay? So the header, I already talked about with you. The nav I talked about. A section, there's a lot of disagreement of people who write web pages. When do you use a section and when do you use an article? All right. And some people where you think, oh, that's a section, they make it an article and vice versa. It doesn't really matter in the end. All we're trying to do is we're trying to take and put some substance to this. And my guess is, even, that everybody who's watching this, whether you're watching it live or whether you are watching it on tape, you've all at least seen a newspaper. All right, that's my guess. And what does a newspaper have in it? It has different sections. And what do those sections have in them? They have articles. All right. So that's the way that I look at this. Okay. That there's not really section and article on a web page doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. You can use either one. All right. And you can have sections and articles, you can have articles and sections, etc. Now, if I come out, I am from Wisconsin. Please don't hold that against me. But if I come out, I still get the Wisconsin paper every day. Okay. And I get it online. So I go out to jsonline.com. Okay. So here's today's paper. And who cares? Well, I'm telling you this. So maybe you've seen this before in a paper or someplace else, that if this was my article right here, it says Clayfish wants to help women run for office after treatment of family. Okay. So if that was the article and I went in and brought up that article, all right, what used to happen instead of having all these ads here is there might have been another article right here. And it would have said Clayfish, because this is true. Clayfish is the former lieutenant governor of Wisconsin. That's who she is. So there might have been a whole nother article here that's related to this indirectly. That's an aside. All right. That's why I'm showing this to you. Okay. It's something, it's literally referred to as something that's tangential. In other words, it is similar to what you're talking about, but it's not the same. Okay. So, and then jumping back into here again, the header's at the top, the footer's at the bottom. So let's put a little bit of this stuff in here so you can at least see it. All right. Now, I will warn you right now, this is going to look pretty darn ugly. All right, just so you know, it's going to look pretty darn ugly. We haven't added a bunch of stuff yet because we haven't talked about it. So don't worry that it looks ugly. That's all I'm telling you. So I'm going to come up at the top of my body and I'm going to put a header in here. Not an header, a header. And inside of that header, I'm going to put in a nav. All right. And inside of that nav, I'm going to pretend for right now, I have 3 pages on my website. I've got a home page, I've got an about page, and I've got a contact page. I'm just going to pretend I have those 3. So I'm going to put here UL, which means unordered list, and I'm going to put in here LI, and in here I'm going to put, I'm going to put a href equals, and I'm going to put in here index.html home. Okay, and I'm going to copy this down twice. And in here, I'm going to put about. Now, these pages don't exist. So in a minute, I'm going to click on them and I'm going to get errors because they don't exist. And I'm going to change that to about. And I'm going to change that to contact. All right, again, remember, you're going to get all this. I'm going to save it at the end of the period today. So when I do a file, save all, and I go back again and look at this, it's going to look pretty ugly. I'm just warning you right now. Let me get rid of some of this stuff because there's way too much junk open right now. All right, there it is, right here. And that doesn't look very good. Okay, and as I told you, if I click about, it's attempting to go to a non-existing page, which is about. So it says it can't get there because there is no page. And if I attempt to go to contacts, same thing. If I click on here, I do have a home page that's called index. So I stay right where I am. Now you might look at this and go, well, why doesn't it look nice like that other one did? Why doesn't it go across the screen this way? And why are those dots there, etc. All right, and we haven't even talked about an unordered list or an ordered list yet, and we're going to fairly quickly. But when we add some CSS, what's going to happen is that stuff, for lack of better words, will pretty much be done for us. All right, so they do talk in here about metadata and those tags that I mentioned before. We already did these. Notice there's other ones you can put in. Okay, this one says name equals description, content equals. Well, if you use a meta name tag, as they show right there, totally fine to do. That is supposed to help with search engine optimization, or SEO. So if you've got a name in there with that says description and content, you're supposed to use about, I think it's almost like a tweet, about 140 characters to explain what the website is about. All right. And the search engine will go in and look at that. All right. Do you have to put that in? No. Should you put that in? It doesn't hurt. All right. And yeah, we know what the title is. So if you didn't notice that, my title on mine, that title had my name on it, just Jeff Scott. And where is that title showing? Well, if I come back up here, where is that? I may have closed it. So let's bring it back up again in live server. All right. If I look up here, it says Jeff Scott. There's the title. All right. All right. The favicon, I don't want to do it right now. We can do it, and we will, but it's going to take a couple minutes, and I'd rather get through this first. All right. So how to code the lang attribute? Guess what? You know that. The lang equals English. So we've gone over this already, the language for the page. We've gone over what H1 tags are. Again, there's an H1 tag, an H2 tag through H6. The higher the number, the smaller the tag. All right. There's our lang equal English. So there's nothing new there. So what they're saying is if you put in something that looks like this, it should come out and look something like this. All right, how to code structural elements. Again, some of this we've already talked about. I showed you the header. We just put that in. I'm going to put in some of the other stuff in just a moment. All right, so we've got a header. I can come in here now and I can grab and put this whole thing underneath my header. I can put this all in a main tag. Now I want to grab my ending tag and I want to put it right near the bottom. So right there. Okay, so now I've got my main section. That's everything that's there. Well, if I want to break this up even more, all right, let's just assume for a second that I wanted this to be its own section. And again, I've got to delineate it. So there's the beginning. And I want it where it ends here. Okay, and I want to put in another one here. Now, that's going to be wrong because I need to get rid of that opening slash. And then down here, I will put in my other one. All right, so now what I have in here, if I go in and right mouse click, in fact, not here, let's run it again. So file, save all, and let's go back and take a look at it when it runs. Right there. It doesn't look any different from putting all that stuff in there. But if I right mouse click on it and view my page source, now what you're going to see is there's my header section. Inside of my header section, I've got a nav. All right. Down here, there's my beginning of my main. There's the end of my main. All right. There's beginning of one section and the end. There's the beginning of the other section and the end. This stuff, this script, I didn't put that in. The system put that in. Don't worry about that stuff at all for now. All right. We'll talk about that stuff in a while. All right. Now, the only thing that I haven't really shown you here is a footer, which typically appears at the bottom of the page. So after my main, I'm going to put in a footer here. So I'm going to say footer. And inside of the footer, I'm going to say created by Jeff Scott. And I want to say that it's a copyright. So I could come in here and type in copyright 2023, all rights reserved. Totally fine. All right. And I'm going to do a file and I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to go back and look at this again. And down at the bottom, I don't need that anymore. All right. Down at the very bottom, there it is. All right. Now, I don't like the word copyright there. I want there to be a copyright symbol. Rather than the word copyright, I want there to be one of those little C's with a circle around it. To do that, I use what's called an HTML entity. So I type in here, ampersand copy, like that. Ampersand copy. And notice once I do that and I save and I go back to my page, now notice it's got the copyright symbol. All right. Now, I mean, this isn't at all designed so you go, oh, wow, wow. But I'm just trying. All right, I think I'm back. So at the top here, header and our nav, this is one section. This is one section. This whole thing from chocolate chip cookies to the bottom here, that's main, and this is a footer down here. And we can go in, just so you see it, and we can go in and let's do a couple things, see what they are. And what do I mean? I'm going in here to my CSS file, and I want to say for my footer, oops, I'm going to put in here text, align, center, and usually footers are pretty small. So I'm going to say font size 0.5 rem. I'm going to make it smaller. So I'm going to save that and let's see what happened. So I said footer, text align center, font size 0.5 rem. So let's see what that did. Well, it's now centered and it's very small, but you can see it still says it. All right. So maybe that's too small. So boom, I just jump back into here. And instead of making it 0.5 rem, I make it 1 rem. That's probably what it was to begin with. And I come back and take a look. And there it is. And I can do similar things with all of this. That's what we're going to be getting into very shortly. All right. All right, so I've tried to show you, and what I showed you wasn't perfect. Maybe I had everything in here, but I showed you a lot of the stuff that's in here. All right. And I don't like using, I mean, to me, it's kind of silly for me to take everything that's in the book and just replicate it exactly. I mean, because you can do that yourselves. All right. The next thing that's discussed here on page 80 is they talk about a div. Div is short for division. Why might I want to use a div? Let's take a look at why we might want to use a div. Okay. Well, I'm going to go back. Remember chip cookies, right? So I'm going to go and I'm going to Google chocolate chip cookie recipe. And there it is. And I found one that I used last time I did this from allrecipes.com that I thought was kind of good. I got this. Deceptive site ahead. Well, that didn't look good. Let's try it again. Wow. I went to that site this morning. Oh, there it is. Okay, there we go. All right, so here it is. And what do we have here? Well, here's our ingredients. All right. And here's our steps to make them. Let's go grab both of these. So I'm going to grab this. I'm copying it to the clipboard, and I'm just going to throw it for now inside of here. Now, why am I doing that? Well, I need butter. I need eggs. I need vanilla. I need baking soda. I need water. I need salt. I need flour. I need chocolate chips, and nuts are optional, but we'll just get rid of them. We won't have nuts. Okay, so there's everything for our ingredients. I think every one of you would agree with me that the order, if I grab these ingredients and they're in my refrigerator or in my cupboard, etc., the order in which I grab these ingredients doesn't matter. In other words, I could grab the butter first, then the eggs, then the vanilla, or I could grab the vanilla first, then the baking soda, etc. When order doesn't matter, like this, when order doesn't matter, you use an unordered list. All right. And we've already looked at one of those up at the top of our screen, but we're going to make another one right now. So up here, and we're going to put this stuff before those paragraphs. So I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to put in let's see, we'll put in an H2 tag, so it's a little smaller, and it'll say ingredients. Okay. Then I'm going to just paste in these ingredients, but I'm going to have to fix this. All right, I want this to go into an unordered list. That's a UL. All right, so there's the beginning of my UL. And after I put in my last ingredient, there's the UL. All right, and let's move all of these over. So I'm going to highlight them and tab a couple times. Now, the system still doesn't know that this is an unordered list, because the stuff that's in here, I haven't done anything special with them. I have to let them know that these are what are called list items. So I have to put an LI tag before each one of these and an ending LI tag at the end of each one of these. Yeah, speaking of both, I didn't want that. Well, it's going to make them anyway, so that's fine. We'll just do it like this. I think you can at least see what I'm doing here. And the last one. All right, so now that I put this in, I'm going to save it. Okay. And I am going to go back to here and bring it up. And there's my ingredients. They automatically get this. We can change this. I can make this so there's nothing in front, or I can make it a circle that's not colored in, or I can make, or if I want to, I could even bring in my own icon. So I could make a little cookie there if I wanted to do that. We're not going to do that right now, but there's our ingredients. All right. Well, that's all fine. Now let's go back to the website. All right. So we're here and we've got our ingredients. And now here's the steps. Now I think you'd agree with me the order does matter. All right. So I'm going to just grab these. Let's see. It looks like so I'm going to grab that. I'm going to come back over here like I just was, and I'm going to bring all these in. But I'm not going to number them myself rather. Bake until the edges are golden brown. Let's see, it didn't say this, so I'm going to say preheat oven. Oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to put that up there first. And bake until golden brown, about 10 minutes. So you don't have to fumble around anymore like I did before. I'm going to come in here and put in my LI tags first. All right, and my ending, and that one needs a slash before it. All right, and I'm going to copy that in to my document. So I've got the ingredients, and now we're going to put in here another H2, and it's going to say instructions. Okay. And I'm going to put in what's called an OL, which means it's an ordered list, and I'm going to put those in. And when order matters, you use an OL. When order does not matter, you use a UL. Here does matter. The order, again, if I stir in the flour and then I go and bake until the edges are golden brown, that won't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. All right, so let's save this. And let's take a look at it again. And now you'll notice our cooking instructions, we've got numbers. We can change that. You can make them numbers. You can make them letters that are in capital letters or lowercase. You can make them Roman numeral numbers in uppercase or lowercase. We're going to all of that stuff. But what I've been able to show you now is an unordered list. This was an H1 tag. Here we brought in an image. Here we brought in an H2 tag. Here we brought in another unordered list. Here we brought in an ordered list underneath another H2 tag. Here we brought in a couple paragraphs and we put in a footer. All right. So hopefully at least we're starting to get some semblance of order into what we're working on. All right. Now I want to show you one more thing before we go on, and that is I'm going to come back here. And I'm going to click down here and I'm going to click down here and I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to put in here about, if I spell it right, about.html. All right. And I'm going to put in my tab, my exclamation point and tab, and I'm going to put here about, and I'm just going to put an H1 tag here that says, this is the about page, just like that. And that should have been an H1, but I guess I didn't put it in as an H1. So let's make that an H1 right now. Get rid of that. Okay. H1. All right. So I've got that, and I do want to add from this. I want to add that unordered list, that header section at the top. If you don't know why, you will in just a moment. So I'm going to grab that, and the only in here is this one line that says this is the about page. So I've got that. All right. And I'm going to do a file save. All right. And now I'm going to right mouse click on the about page and I'm going to copy it. And it says, what do I want to call this? I don't want to call it about copy. So I'm going to rename this. This is going to be contact.html. And over here, I'm going to put in contact. Now I did that very quickly, but what I want to show you is this. All right, I'm going to go back to my home page, the one we're familiar with, and I'm going to do a file save on here. And then I'm going to go back to here. All right, and now notice that what happens on here, when I now have an about page, and whoop, I guess I didn't change that to contact, but I now can go from page to page. So I now have a working 3-page website. This should say this is the contact page. Just so you see it. So file, save all, come back one more time. So home, about, contact. All right. So hopefully what you've been able to see is we've been going in here over for your break. I apologize. I'm going to give you a break in a minute, but we've now created a complete website. All right. So when we come back from the break momentarily, we are going to finish up this chapter. All right. And I'm going to put a div in and a few other things so you see them. It is 10:11. I apologize for going over. So let's make this 15 or 14 minutes. We'll start up again at 10:25. I'll see you then. Unbelievable. All right, during the break, I did go in and added a couple things. Again, you will have the finished product of this, but for the About page, I just went and added some text. So we now have this. And for the contact page, not much more, but I applied the CSS to each page. All right. And one of the reasons I did this was going to the About page. What I want to be able to do is I'm just, and again, I'm making this up as I go, but I want to take these two paragraphs, those two, and I want to reverse them. In other words, I want them to have a green background and gold text. Why am I doing that? Just for demonstration purposes, that's all. And I'm going to show you right now two ways that we can do this. Okay. So again, the idea is when we get done and run this again, the two paragraphs that you currently see in blue will have yellow or and a green background if what I'm about to do works. So I'm going to go into, I'm going to go into my CSS file here. All right. Now, if I go to P, that'll change all paragraphs, and I don't want that. I only want two paragraphs changed. All right. So what I'm going to do, and again, like I said, there's multiple ways of doing this. I'm going to show you one way of doing it, and then I'll show you another way. So these two paragraphs that are in the middle, so there's paragraph 1, here's paragraph 2. I'm going to give this a class, and I'm going to say class equal, and we call it whatever we want. All right. But since basically what I'm doing is I'm reversing this, I'm just going to say class equal, and I'm going to call it reverse. So I want this paragraph to have a class of reverse, and this paragraph also to have a class of reverse. What does that mean? All right, that means right now, if I ran this, it would look absolutely the same, no difference. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, if you've got a paragraph, all right, or anything, if you've got something that has a class, all right, that's what the dot means. If it has a class called reverse, then what I want you to do is I want the background color. I want that, all right, to be green. Whoops. And I want the color to be gold. I've just reversed them from what we had originally, which was background color gold, color green. Now it's background color green, color gold. So let's do a file, save all, and let's see if it worked for those two paragraphs. And you can see that it did. All right. So that's how you use a class. So in other words, I could grab anything. So if for some reason, where I've got here, this is the about page, this, you can see that, if I wanted to do the same thing there, I could go up to that tag that says this is the about page. I could go up to that tag that says this is the about page up near the top. And for this H1, I could say class equals reverse and save that and then come back again. And you'll notice that's now changed. All right. So I can apply a class multiple times on a page. All right. Now, if I only want to apply something once on a page, rather than using a class, all right, rather than using a class, typically then what you do is you use what's called an ID. Now, there was absolutely nothing wrong earlier when I did this, when I came in here and I've got this footer, totally fine. Okay. If I wanted to, though, if I wanted to give that a name, I could. So I could say footer, and there's only one footer on my page. So I could say ID equal, and I could call it the same thing. So I could say ID equal footer, just like that. All right. So I'm going to grab this right here, and I'm going to put it on all 3 pages. So let me do a file save all here, and let me put it on the index page. I don't have to do this, but again, I'm just doing this to show you some stuff. That's all. And on my contact page as well. So again, I'll do a file, save all. And now, just to show you that it has changed, this before we said text align, center, font size, etc. Now I'm going to put a hashtag here, which you put in there when you're using an ID. And did I say ID or did I say class? ID, 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 good. So hashtag footer, and let's change it just so you see it. So what we'll do here is we'll say the order in which you put these statements in does not matter at all. But I'll say here, let's see, background, color, black, and we'll put color, white. Okay, just to change it up a little bit, just so you can see it. Hopefully, again, this will work. Well, there it is. There is our footer down there. And let's check it out on the other pages because we put it out on all 3 pages. And you can see it is there on all 3 pages. Now, there's another way that I could do at least some of this. And I want to show that to you right now. Okay. And what do I mean? Again, I'm demonstrating here. So this site is looking more and more a little weird for lack of. And here, where I put class equal reverse here, and I put the class equal reverse, I think it was up here. I'm going to get rid of those. So I don't have those anymore. But I do want to take, I want to take those 2 paragraphs and I want to treat them as though they were one unit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put around these what's called a div, which is short for division. Okay. So I've got my beginning div here, and let me highlight all of this and just tab it over once there. And now I'm going to put in my ending div. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that div a name. So I'm going to say div. I could make it an ID or a class, but I'll say class equal. And again, you can call these things anything you want. And this is a dumb name, but I'm going to call it big orange text. It's a stupid name, but it'll be fine. So big orange text. Okay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do then is go back to my styles here, and it was a class. Okay, so I'm going to put a period for the class. Okay, big orange text, and I'm going to say background. We won't even change the background color. We'll say color, and we'll say here orange. All right, and font size. And I'm going to put in here something outrageous. So I'm going to put in here 4 rem. So if this works, those 2 paragraphs, which are now 1 division or 1 unit, should now be orange with their text, and they should be a lot bigger, actually 4 times as big as the other paragraphs. So let's see if that worked. Right, so what's in the About page? Well, and it looks like it didn't work, which could be for more than one reason, so let's check. All right, first of all, let's make sure that I saved it. Save all, I guess. All right, and then let's go back and look at it again. And there it is. Now, it didn't get 4 times bigger, but it's orange. So let's see if we can figure out why it didn't get bigger. All right, we'll do that right now. All right, so font size, 4 rem. Color orange worked. It looked terrible against that. Okay, so font size, that is right. Font size 4 rem. Got the font size here as 1 rem. I think it's being overridden by this one, to be honest with you, but I'm not sure why it would be. Let's do something else, all right? Just to make sure that indeed it works. So we will say background. And we'll make this a Halloweenish looking. You can say background color, or you can just say background. Either one is fine. So I'll put black here. And let's see if indeed that is. And you can see that it is. So when you create a div, the idea is you're lumping things together. Now that may not seem very important right now, but as we go on, it will take on significant importance. All right. And it used to be back in the day. All right. If you remember earlier, I showed you the main and I showed you the header and the nav, etc. It used to be none of those things existed before HTML5. So when people wanted to create a header like that, they would say div equal header, and they would do it like that. All right, but it's been replaced. All right, so let's go on in the book here. So I'm just showing you roundabout how you can combine things together. If we did their example right here, guess what? It wouldn't look any different. The idea typically, the reason that you put in divs like this, like they're showing here, is that you can add CSS that runs just on that particular div if you give it a class or you give it an ID. All right, but just putting it in there like this, it won't look any different at all. Okay, next they talk about some of the inline elements, and I want you to understand something, and I hope that you do after I mention this. And that is this. I think you'd agree when you look at it that this paragraph stretches pretty much across the entire width of my page. There's a little bit of margin that's built in there by the browser, but it takes up the whole thing. All right. And that is called a block element. A block element basically is greedy. It takes up 100% of the room that you give it. All right. Now, and again, you might say, is that an important thing, Jeff? It can be, and I want to show you why. All right. So let's go back to our home page here, and let's talk about some things that are in here that are not block elements, that are what are referred to as inline elements. All right. So where we have this here, we've got, let's see, let's grab something that's in here. Maybe we want to make sure that the person knows that right here, they better use hot water. All right. We want them to use that. We want to make sure that that stands out where it says add in hot water. So how do we do that? Well, that's what I'm going to show you right now. All right. So as we get back in here and I go back into the index page, I could just search for it, but I know pretty much where it is. And that's right here. So hot water. I could do it the old way. Now, this is not recommended. What I'm going to show you is not recommended. I'm going to show you the old way of doing it. Then I'm going to show you the new way and explain why you should use the new way. The old way is easier because it's a single letter. B means I want to bold this. So I want to bold hot water. Okay. I want that to be bolded. Now, if I save this and I bring this up, hopefully you can tell that hot water is now bolded. All right, that is called an inline element. It didn't stretch all the way across the page. It was only in effect for what I told it to be in effect for, which was part of the page. All right, if I wanted it not only to be bolded, but also if I wanted it to be italicized, the old way of doing it then would have been like this. Remember that we have inner tags within outer tags. So this should now be both bolded and italicized. And hopefully you can tell that it is. Now, that's the old-fashioned way of doing it. And it's not recommended that you do it like that anymore. I'm going to show you the new recommended way. It's a little more work, but it all boils down to this. All right. Using the old way like this wasn't consistent among all browsers, especially browsers for people who are visually impaired. All right. The B tag didn't always do what you wanted it to do. All right. Neither did the I tag. So the recommendation today, this won't look any different after I change it, but you don't use B anymore. You use strong. Oops, you have to spell it right. You use strong. So it's a little more typing. And instead of I, you use M, which is short for emphasis. All right. Those are the newer tags. Now, the old tags can still be used, but when you look at certain tag lists, if you know, not the one I showed you before, but if you look on other websites for tag lists, sometimes next to the tag, it'll say deprecated. And what deprecated means is it's been marked for extinction. Now, there are probably not millions, there might very well be billions of lines of code in websites throughout the world that still use the B tag and the I tag. But the recommendation is for all new work, instead of a B tag, you use strong. Instead of an I tag, you use M. And again, it's because they work better with people who have some kind of an impairment. Now, if I save this, okay, and I go back and look, it still looks the same. It's still bolded and it's still italicized. I will expect you to use the strong tag and the M tag and not the B and I tags. All right. I mean, you're supposed to learn to do this stuff the right way. All right. So let's jump back quickly into our book here. Here are some of the inline tags, not even the ones I showed you. You could have abbreviations, citations. The code one will make your code, will literally make your code, it'll change the font type on it. Okay. So you can read through those. Is this stuff in here that important? It's important enough. I'll just leave it that way. The ones that we care more about are these. M, and again, you can put M and strong, I mentioned to you. Small, all right, to show you small real quick. If we go back into here and we look at our footer, and we've got here font size 1 rem, I'm going to change that to font size small. Notice there's small, smaller, X small, and XX small. All right. So I'm going to save that and come back here and here. And now it is smaller than it was before. Okay. All right. And there are mentioned in here. We can go through these. I think, again, you'd get a lot more out of going through these yourselves. This will subscript text. This will superscript text. What's the difference? Subscript will let's see, there's a subscript right there. And do they have a superscript? It's when it goes up on the top. All right, so there's a lot of different things that you can do. What I want you to understand from this are inline elements typically are used, they don't stretch across the entire line usually. All right, in fact, they don't. Okay, and what I mean is, even if I went in, let's go back and look at that line that we bolded before. Let's say for whatever reason, this thing where we did this strong and this M, let's get rid of these. And I'm going to make a strong for this entire line. So I'm going to put a strong tag here. And my ending tag is going to go at the end of the line here. So the whole thing is in strong now. I'm going to do a file save. And I'm going to go take a look at it. And you'll notice that's bold, but it ends right there. This isn't bolded. I know there's nothing there, but it's not bolded. So in other words, if I went back here and just typed, whoops, if I typed in here, hello, that's not inside of the strong tag. All right. So the word hello there should not be bolded. And you notice it's not. So an inline element is designed to work only on part of the line. It's basically you have inline elements typically inside of what are called block elements. Block elements are like the paragraph I showed you. They're things that rest on their own, an H1 tag, and there'll be a list of them in your book. All right. So again, an inline element, as it says, is typically coded within a block element. It doesn't begin on a brand new line. All right. And here's some block elements. Plus they talk about the character entities. I'd already shown you one of the character entities. All right, I showed you the copyright symbol that's shown in the table here. There's some other ones. So there's a trademark, there's a register, and there's other ones. So what we're saying is if you want to show and show this, there is nothing like that on the keyboard. You put in typically this, and you don't need to put in all that. It's just ampersand copy works. But there's a bunch, oh, that's, there it is, ampersand copy. And here's some other ones. So if you want the degree, remember earlier in the thing here where we had the instructions, we said 350 degrees Fahrenheit. If we didn't want that, we should be able to put ampersand DEG like that. I don't know if that's going to work. I think it is. In fact, we don't even need this. We'll put it like that. File, save all. Ready. And there it is, 350, and there's the little circle. All right. So these character entities are designed as shortcuts for you to be able to show information that's not directly available from your keyboard. Okay. All right. Now there's other stuff here. Notice there's a block quote, there's address, and there's pre. All right. Let's use the address one just so you see it. Okay. I'm going to actually, well, let me grab this. This book doesn't let me copy things. So let's go over to the contact page. All right. And we don't have much in here now. It just says this is the contact page. So I'm going to put in a paragraph here. Oops. And it's going to say, please contact me at the following. Now there's much better ways of doing this, but we haven't gotten to that point yet. So I'm going to put in here address. So Jeff, Scott, and I'm going to put in all of Rankin's info. So 751 Parr Road, Wentzville, Missouri, 63385. And let's see what that did. So file, save all. We'll jump back into here and we'll take a look. So going to the contact page, okay, it basically just italicized it. And notice it even put everything on one line. It didn't know that I wanted it on multiple lines. I could force that to go on multiple lines. Okay, it put it on one line, it did it here. So if I wanted, I could put in a BR here and hit enter, even though it's going to probably be removed. Another BR here and hit enter. When I say it'll be removed, I mean these particular line breaks right there. So if I do a file, save all, notice, oh, they did keep them. All right. So now when I look at this, it's over 3 lines. Okay. That's all that the address thing does. Some of the newer tags aren't that wow, for lack of better words. All right. Let's use this one. The href with the mail to again. I don't think it's going to let me make a copy. So we'll just, so it's href equal email. Oh, it says email to. It always used to be mail to, but we'll look. All right. All right, we'll do one more thing here and we'll say mail to. I think that's how you do it. Let's look on the book here. Okay. I think that's right. We'll see real quick. All right, and there it is. And that actually will hopefully do a mail to, and it'll mail it to me there. Again, I could put this on a new line. It's like we did before. I want to look at the way they showed it in the book because it looked like it was a little different to me. Again, they used email to and the whole thing. Okay, that's okay. So email to and get rid of this and this and do it like that. There it is. Now, if I put my mouse over it, it will tell me that it down way in the bottom left-hand corner that it's going to send an email and it's going to go out to jpscott@rankin.edu. Okay. All righty. Now later on a contact page, we'll learn how to create a form to put in here. All right. Which will be much slicker and much more the way things are done, but we just haven't gotten to that point yet. All right, so there's that stuff. How to code links, lists, and images. Well, the URLs, we've started talking about this already. Now, I'm going to let you take a look at what's in there, but they mentioned some different kinds of URLs. When I showed you Rankin's URL and I put in https://rankin.edu, that was an absolute URL. On the other hand, when we were inside of, when we were in here, doesn't matter which page, right here, these aren't absolute URLs here and here and here. These are, for lack of better words, kind of relative URLs, relative to where we currently are. And again, that's what's discussed in here. All right, coding links, we've looked at this already. You saw how to do the A with the href. And again, you can put in there, inside of these double quotes, whatever you need to put in. In other words, okay, in other words, you can make that a complete or a full URL. You can make it a partial URL, a relative URL, etc. It's probably not going to make a lot of sense to you until you read the chapter. If you start something with 2 dots like this, that means go up 1 level. So in other words, it's like in here. If I was right here and I went inside of images, where my image is, and I wanted for some reason in here, I wanted to reference the index.html file, I'd have to say ... which means go up a level, because this is a level lower than this, or this is a level higher than this, depending on how you look at it. The lists we've gone over already. I showed you an organized, an ordered list, and I showed you an unordered list. So we talked about both of those. There's also something that's called basically a data list. All right. I don't know if they're going to mention it here. They're not used very often. Okay. But when the time comes, we'll take a look at that. I showed you images. All right. And we talked about how we could take that image and make it smaller. If you remember, originally for that image, so let me go back to here, and I'm going to literally, because I'm going to show you another way to change the size of that image. All right. So where we had the image, it said 5%. I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to make it 100%. Okay, which is going to skew the way the website looks, but it's okay because we're going to fix it in a moment. Right. So when I go to here and I go back to home, now it's big again. That's 100% of its size. Okay. I mean, I can make this bigger, etc., but that's pretty bad. You know, it's much bigger than I want it to be. So let's see how we change that. All right. Another way we can change it. Well, right now, this isn't in your book. This is just something that I'm just showing you. In our images, if I put my mouse over it, it says that it's 637 by 637. All right. That's too big. So I'm going to right mouse click on my image. In fact, I'm going to make a copy in case I screw it up. So I'm going to do a Control C to copy and a Control V to paste. Okay. And I've got the copy here just in case I screw this up. I'm going to right mouse click on here and I'm going to say open with paint. Okay. So that's basically it right now. Then I'm going to go over to here where it says resize. All right. And you can do percentages or pixels. 99 times out of 100, you're going to choose pixels here. And you see it's 637 by 637. I'm going to change this and make it about, I don't know, 75 by 75. And you can see how the size changed. All right, so I'm going to do a file, save. If I put my mouse over it after I close this, you'll see it now says it's 75 by 75. And if I go back to my page, well, that didn't work at all, did it? Well, let's see if we can figure out why. I know that works because I've done it before. Sometimes that's the only way you can do it is like this. So originally it was, let's go back and make it what it was originally. So it was 637 by 637. So it looked like this. All right, let's see if we can resize it with percentages. All right, so instead of 100%, let's make it 25%. And we'll save that. Okay, then I'm going to save it here and go back and bring my program up again and see if it changed the size. And it doesn't look like it did. Well, I'm not showing you much of anything here. I know that it works. We'll get to a certain point where we do an assignment where it works much better to do it that way. So I guess for now, that's why, because of this, get rid of that image 100%. That wouldn't help. So save. Now let's look. Now it's back at a more manageable size. In fact, let's see, this is it at 100% right now. Okay. All right. So there's 3 different kinds of images. There's actually more than that. All right. The ones that you'll use most of all will probably be JPEGs and PNGs. That said, and this is not in your book here, but Google now has their own format for images. And quite often when you copy an image, it'll say WebP, WEBP, and that is a Google format for this. There's a whole big story about JPEG versus GIF versus PNG, and I don't even remember, to be honest with you, anymore what the story is. You can look it up, but typically JPEGs and PNGs will work the best. GIF, that's usually used for things like logos. So something like that might be a GIF. All right. We've looked at the height and width. That's another way you can change this stuff. It's not recommended, but you can do that. So literally, we could have gone right back into here where we had that picture, and we could have changed the height and the width right in here. All right. I don't know if you just say height equals or and width equal, I don't remember, but you shouldn't do that. Okay. So one thing but there's actually 3 ways that you can add CSS to a web page, and I'd like to show you all 3 of them. One is what I've shown you here. This is called external CSS, where you put the CSS in its own file. All right. But I'm going to come back and I'll just grab the contact page because it's the smallest. Okay. And I'm going to say that for this contact page, I'm going to create what are called style tags. And I'm going to say the H1, and this is only the H1. This is only the H1 on this style page. All right. I'm going to say here, color, blue, background, white, just so you can see it. All right. If this works, and it should. So file, save all. And then let's go back. All right. So it's still green there. It's still green there. And there it's white background with blue. Why did that work? And why did that work like that? When you use an external CSS file like we did originally, and you bring that file into all your pages with the link command, it is going to work for all of them. All right. So external CSS is designed to work site-wide, your entire website. All right. Style tags are designed to work on a page. All right. So that only is applying to this page. Okay. Now, you probably have seen this already, and I'm just going to, maybe you've seen little kid stories where they say stuff like once upon a time, and the O in once is real big. All right. Well, I'm going to show you that in here. So I'm going to put in here span. All right. And I'm going to say, let's see. I'm sure I'm going to goof this up, but I might have to look it up. So style equals font size, rem, just like that. And then we'll end the span like that. If this works, if I wrote it correctly, I probably didn't, but if I did, the P should be very big here. So let's see if I did it correct or I didn't do it correct. There it is. You can see it right there. See that? That is called inline. So external is when you put it in its own file. Internal is when you use a style tag, like I showed you for this right here. And inline is when you do something that just affects an element. The recommendation is you never, ever use inline. Because what I'm doing here is I'm mixing CSS with my HTML. So I'm putting CSS right inside of my HTML. And you should always strive to not do that. All right. It's not that it's wrong per se. Okay. So it's not that it's wrong, but it's just considered. I mean, when I say not that it's wrong, I don't think you'll get any kind of error or anything for it, but it's just considered very, very poor practice to do that. All right. All right. And you'll notice here too, it also said, for more on coding image elements, see chapter 11. So we're going to have whole chapters on a lot of this stuff that I've gone over with you. All right. Now, at the end of the chapter here, what they're doing is they're trying to show you this entire website. Okay. They're going to create an entire website. They're going to try to follow all their rules. So they want to make this. Okay. Now, there's a lot of things in here that I don't like, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with what they did. It's all going to be syntactically correct. And to my knowledge, everything that's in there, to my knowledge at least, everything that's in there should validate just fine. All right. I mean, we can even go in and check it. I can go and grab this. So I can go, well, I don't think it'll let me copy. No, it doesn't. All right. But we could if we had the code. So if I went out and grabbed the code, we could try to validate it. But this is from this. So there really shouldn't be much of anything, if anything, that's in here that we haven't already gone over. The only thing I don't see here is this favicon. So let's see if we can make our own favicon. Let's see if we can do that right now. All right. So we're making chocolate chip cookies. And I don't have any idea with what I'm about to do if it'll work or not, but I'm going to come in here and type in chocolate chip cookie favicon. Again, there might not be one, and that's totally fine. Chocolate chip cookie recipes, chocolate chip cookie favicon. That's nice. All right, so there it is. This little chocolate chip cookie thing right here. Geez, I don't even like that. I'm going to go make my own, and we'll see if we can get this to work. It may work, it may not, but it should. So let's go in and we'll grab a chocolate chip cookie. Let's see. I just want to make sure I'm not going to have the same problems I had before, but we'll try it. See if they actually have a favicon here. All right. That one looks like it should work. So I'm going to grab that. I am going to copy the image. In fact, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save the image as and put it right in my images folder. And we're going to call it something else. Typically, you call it favicon.ico. All right. So I don't know what size that's going to be, and I'm going to check that out right now. That's the old one. So here it is. I don't even know if this worked. Looking at it here. Yep, it's there. Okay, so what size is this? Let's resize. 219 by 219. Let's use the percentages, and I'm going to try to make that about 10, like that. Now, that's real little, but it's real little on purpose. Why is that real little? Remember what I told you earlier in class today, and that was, that these favicons are what appear up here. So we're going to try right now. It just says all right, hopefully you're back. I don't know what the heck is going on, why my internet is so flaky today, but it is. All right, so we're going to see if we can add that favicon. All right, that'll be pretty much it for today, I think. So let's see, going back in here, looking at our book. I'm going to try to steal their line of code because I'll forget it otherwise. So the favicon is right there. All right, so let me just copy that. Link rel equal shortcut icon href equal, and it is in my images folder, /favicon.ico. Okay. No idea if this will work or not, but what the heck, give it a try. So I'll just put it in the first one, and if it works, I'll move it over into the other two. So here we are. Okay. You'll know right away whether or not it works, because when I go and bring up the page, all right, that's contact, so it still has the old one. That's about, so it still has the old one. There's home, and there's my cookie. All right. So that's how you can bring in a favicon. So let me grab this, and I'll copy it over to the other two pages. And it must appear in the head section. All right. But whether you have it near the top of the head or the bottom of the head, that typically won't matter a bit. So now I should have the favicon on all pages. So there's my home page. There it is. There's my about page, and there it is. There's my contact page, and there it is. All right. So I've shown you how to bring in a favicon as well. All right. So this is what I'd like to do. All right. We can go on. Again, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. You know, I've lectured basically, other than the breaks, for 3 hours yesterday and for 3 hours today. All right. What I'd like to do is tomorrow, just to show you this. Tomorrow, as a class, I would like us to go over this first written test. And when I say go over it, what I mean is, you know, I'll put the people who are here maybe on the spot a little. See if you've got time to go over this yourselves tonight, but we'll do it together as a class tomorrow. All right. And if I say number one, a web browser, and if none of you know what it is, I'll give you the answer. Totally fine. So we'll do chapter one's written test. So you'll have that done. All right. And then when we get done with that, let's see. With the homework, is there any homework for chapter one, these Halloween exercises? So the first one is chapter 3. So you don't have any for chapter 1. You don't have any for chapter 2. So we'll do this one together. All right. So I'm giving you basically all of that for the first 3 chapters. And then the homework, and then we'll look at the labs. And that also starts on chapter 3. All right. So the good news is the only homework that you're really going to have to do after that on your own will be the written test for chapter 2 and the written test for chapter 3. We'll do the rest of the stuff ourselves. Now, that's the only time we're going to do this, is the first assignment. Other than that, I'm going to expect you to do them on your own. And they'll still be due when I said, which is a week from Sunday on the 22nd. Now, again, today we went over chapter 2. We built a simple website. So let me do this right now. All right, let me go back to our website. And I'm going to do a file, save. All right. And if I do a file, exit now, good. So there it is. I've already got my Git folder here. I've already made my first website. We made that already. You saw that before. So I'm going to right mouse click on here. In fact, I've got Git up still right there. And I've set my remote. I've set everything. So I'm going to say git push -u origin master and hit enter. It says failed to push. I don't think that I committed. So same thing I did yesterday. Git commit -m. And I'm going to say chocolate chip cookie website created 1-12-2023. Hit enter. All right. So it says untracked files. So let's do another git status here. Hopefully they're all green. Well, untracked files. No commits yet. So what didn't it like about my line? Git commit -m. Nothing added. Use git add. Oh, okay. I didn't do a git add yet. So let me do that. So remember what we do. We come in first and we say git init and we hit enter. That makes this. I can hit enter, but it'll tell me it already exists. Then we say git add dot. That adds everything. I didn't do that before. Now, if we say git status, those things that were all red before should all be green now. There they are. Then I say my git commit -m chocolate chip cookie website created there and hit enter. And now it's got those. Now when I say git push -u origin master, again, you'll probably have to say main. Okay, so let's go back to GitHub and see if it's actually out there. All right, so we had, it was first website, and there it is. Right now, there's the CSS, there are the images, etc. So it's all there. Now, one last thing I wanted to do here, I want to make sure that I put these down here so you all see them. So when you set this up, all right, when you go through this, the first thing that you want to do is to go out to github.com and make a repository. It's a little smaller. All right, and you want to make a repository with the same name as your folder. All right, then next, you want to copy the remote origin line that github.com gives you to your clipboard. All right, next, so you'll right mouse click on the open folder and choose Git Bash here. All right, then you will do a git init. So that will also, again, from your Git Bash here command line, key in git init, followed by the enter key. And then again, from your command line, you will next type in git add, and you need a period, which means add everything. All right. Then next, you will type in git commit -m with some kind of a message in there. And then finally, you will do a git push -u origin, and you will say either probably main, but it might be master. Then finally, you should be able to go back to github.com. Refresh your page. And your files should have been uploaded. All right. So those should be the steps that you have to go through. When we do this tomorrow, all right, I will actually have you open up the Git repo that you have, repository or repo, that we copied over yesterday. We'll do all of our work in there. And I'll show you how to do everything. We'll run through it all over again. And hopefully, all right, as soon as possible, then maybe not tomorrow, but as soon as you finish the other 2 tests, you'll be able to follow these steps right here, and you'll have your first set of assignments turned in. I will save this and I will add it. So I'm going to do a save as here, and I'm just going to call this AWD1000 01-12-2023.txt. I will add this file right here as an attachment to what we've been working on today. So my last question for you is, rather than going on and starting to do this today, does anybody have any questions on any of the stuff that we've gone over today or yesterday? Anything is fair game. Anybody?
I have a question about the Git Bash thing.
Okay.
Whenever I get to the commit -m and then the message, it tells me that please tell me who you are. It says
Oh,
author identify
am I
unknown.
glad you said that? I am so glad. Thank you for saying that. Okay, because there's something we got to add first. You're right. Thank you so much. Very simple. You only have to add it once, but I'm going to show you what that is right now. In fact, what I'm going to do real quick, let's see if I can find this. I had written down all these steps, and I'll send that out to you also. So let's see if I have git steps.txt. See if I finds this. Thank you so much for saying that. Here it is, GitHub pages steps. All right. Yeah, I didn't have you type in, where are they? Come on, I know. No, that isn't right. That's the wrong file. All right, while it's looking, I'm just gonna look for it in another way. Yeah, you have to add 1 line. I want to make sure I'm giving you the line or 2 lines correctly. Let's see. I'll know the file as soon as I see it, so. None of those. Should be it here. Oh, where is that? Yeah, there's 2 lines you have to come in. You have to key in. I'm going to find those right now before we finish up today. And I'll put those in here also, just so you've got them. So let's see. That's it right there. Thank you so much for reminding me. Oh, I would never do that on purpose where I not put that in there. So from your Git command line, you'll have to type in this. Now, you won't put in John Doe. If your name is Bill Smith, you will put in Bill Smith right there. All right. And for your email, put in your Rankin email. All right. Now it's showing that this one's in double quotes and this one's not. And that's because there's a blank space here and there's no blank spaces in here. So if this was Bill Smith and he was W. Smith at, insiderankin.org or whatever. So this is, you must put these two lines in once. You are registering basically with Git and you're letting them know that's your name and that's the associated address. So please put those in. So go in and do a Git Bash here. All right. And I can do them right now. I'll do them for me just so you see them. All right. So let's see. I'll come in here. You can do it from any place. You can do it right from your desktop, any place where you get a Git Bash here. So this is fine. All right. So grab that again. Where was that? Here. Now I've already done it, so it's not going to matter. It shouldn't hurt at all. But the first line that you put in then is this one. Whoops. Get rid of that. Sorry. Try it again. First one you put in is this one. Git space config space -- global space user.name space and then your name in double quotes. If you do that and you hit enter and it comes back with just your prompt, it worked. It took it. And the second one that you type in then will be that one. But again, replace the JP Scott with your Rankin email. And when you get done, again, hit enter and it should come back with just your prompt. You should only have to do that once. And it shouldn't matter where you do it from. So if you do that and then you go back and like you said before, and you try to do the push and whatever, it should work. All right. What you may have to do is if you still have a Git session open where it didn't work, close it and put this in and then do it from here and it should work. Thank you so much for reminding me of that. Again, I'll go over this all tomorrow when we go over the assignment. Okay. Thank you so much for the question. Any other questions? Anybody? All right. So again, tomorrow, and I'll see if we can do this as quickly as possible. There won't be 3 hours tomorrow. Ideally, we can do the written test in literally probably about 10 minutes. All right. And hopefully we'll shoot for about an hour or so and try to get everything done in that time. All right. Then I'll see you then. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. You too. All right.